Alright, man. Welcome to the shop. I say man because I seriously doubt there's any females watching this video. But if you are, how you doing? Anyway, so what we got here is 3 Ford starters. We've got the 6 liter, 6.4, and the 6.7, as denoted by the markings on my scrap piece of janky cardboard here. And a quick aside, here's a testament to the delivery systems. These two are USPS. This box was hanging on by a thread. This one wasn't much better, but it was still structurally intact. And this over here was UPS, and it looks almost brand new. So, you know, there's that. So if you go on the internet, the forums and everything, you'll see a lot of people that complain about the cranking RPMs of the 6 liter starter. And so one of the popular swaps is to put a 6.4 starter on the 6 liter, and it cranks faster. And then, after the 6.7s came out, it was discovered that the 6.7 starters are backwards compatible as well. Even though they may look a little different as far as the nose cones go, the only thing that holds that you have to modify if you use the 2011, the 6.7 liter starter, is this hole, this threaded hole here is smaller for a smaller bolt, and the 6.4, this is a larger bolt, so you have to put if you're going backwards, you need to put a bushing in to take up this extra room left over when a smaller bolt is used, which is required on the 6.7 liter starter. So anyway, the irony is I don't even own any of these engines. I have a 7.3 liter engine, and I'm real particular about the way it cranks up, and try as I may, I've never been able to consistently find a starter that will spin the engine what I consider sounds healthily, however you want to say it. I've bought cheap starters from, I don't know, this was 7-8 years ago. They were like $60 or $70 a piece. When they were brand new, they would spin the engine fast, repeatedly, but it seemed like they slowed down rather quickly if they held together at all. I think I went through like 2 or 3 of them in a couple of weeks because they were just, the quality was crap. It was solenoid issues mostly. So now I've gone back to AutoZone remanufactured starters, and I mean, the last one I had on there lasted years and years, and the only reason it died was because the batteries went dead and it generated a lot of extra heat on the solenoid terminal, and eventually that broke and the starter just went to use it one time and it didn't work. Luckily I was at home, and I just gotten back from like a 2-hour road trip, so thank God it failed me at home and not on the trip. So anyway, the plan for all this is to clean these starters up, take them apart, and get into the nuts and bolts of them and compare what is really different between all of these. I'm going to look at the windings, the brushes, the configurations internally of them all, see if the motors themselves are the same, check the gear reductions between in the housings here, and just compare them and see what's up. And eventually the plan is maybe put a 7.3 housing nose cone, mounting it, if you will, on a newer 6.7 liter starter and see if that changes anything. I don't know. It's all, that's why I'm doing this. But I did spend my hard-earned money to purchase all of these starters to help out you guys. But really, I'm doing it for me, so, you getting to watch is just kind of a bonus. So anyway, I'm going to clean these up in the parts washer, start tearing them down, and then see what we've got. This was off of an F550, this was off of a 2011, doesn't say 250, 350, 450, 550, whatever. This one says Vistion, and the picture on the internet, this label is intact. It's a little screwed up now, so I can't read the part number, so I have to look at the old listing and see what the part number was on it. This part number is 7C3T11000BB. I guess that's the part number. There's many numbers on here. These are both Safo Moco. This one says Vistion. Yeah, that's all I got. So I'm going to get them cleaned up and then we'll go from there. Okay, I've got it all cleaned up. I only cleaned this one up. These two are pretty clean already. So now I'm going to start tearing it down. After I get my jams going, of course. Okay, so I've torn everything down, I've made all my inspections. I've got a 6 liter, 6.4, 6.7, and then over here we have a 7.3 starter. This starter is actually an AutoZone reman, so it's not like for like in the respect that these other 3 units are all OEM. However, aside from that, I think we still can learn a lot from this comparison. So here's the findings. So this is a 6 liter starter. Now, the 2 obvious things that stand out to me are that the bearing that rides on the back of the starter drive, which is this bearing here that I'm pointing to, and it lives in this part of the housing, the bearing is the same size on the 6 liter and the 7.3. However, they are smaller than the corresponding bearings on the 6.4 and the 6.7 starter. So somewhere between the 6 liter and the 6.4 they decided to upgrade this, so the bearing is bigger. The second difference is the starter drive itself. You can see the 6 liter starter drive has this little piece that sticks out past the gear, whereas the 6.4 and the 6.7 don't have that. Another difference is the way they actually operate. So this is the 7.3. If I push down here where the solenoid activates on the pinion here, when you push it up, as you can see, the tooth spins, or the teeth spin, but the shaft that they ride on is stationary. So you're just, when I push up, I'm basically only moving this portion outwards. However, on the 6.4 and 6.7 starters, if I do the same thing, you can see the teeth move as well as the shaft. So it's functionally, it's different operation, but it performs the same function. So that's just a difference. It's not good or bad, it is what it is. So starter drive is different. This starter drive has a larger bearing here. Let's see, this bearing, which is for S&Gs, 40 millimeter OD. This one here, 47. It's a little bit bigger. Okay, now aside from that, other differences. The overall length of the armatures are the same amongst all the starters. However, the I don't even know what you call them. In the case, it would be called the field windings, but this portion here, the poles, I guess, for lack of a better term. Okay, these are roughly 47 millimeters, give or take, in length. 6.4, they're larger. And I'll show you on the 6.7 because it's just cleaner, it's easier to see. So they are 50 millimeters compared to, you can see it's a pretty big difference. So it's that's probably about 45. So they're 5 millimeters longer on the 6.4 and the 6.7, and the corresponding field windings, the poles, the magnets are larger too, to correspond with that increase in length. So that is really the only difference. Aside from little things like the two solenoid, the solenoid of the 6.4 and the 6.7 have these little black plastic pieces here, plugs of some sort. The solenoid on the 6.0 and the 7.3 do not have that. So really the difference is the length of the field windings and this corresponding section on the armature. So any increase in power or cranking RPM or anything like that has to come from the bigger windings and armature that's on the 6.4 and the 6.7, because the gear reduction is the same across all of them. They all have 12 teeth on the drive here, 44 teeth here, and the corresponding teeth count on the armature itself is 9, so the gear reduction is the same across the board. The brushes are about the same size. There's the same number of poles on all of these armatures. 23 is the number, in case you're wondering. So the only other difference that I saw is in the way that this brush plate is attached. So on the 6-liter starter, you've got the brushes are attached to these two poles back here in the corner. So these two poles is where the brush is attached to. And it's different on the 6.4 and the 6.7. The brushes attach, they just attach differently. The wiring looks completely different, and these are all series wound DC motors, because you get greater torque at 0 RPM with that style, so it's ideal for a starting motor. But if you can tell, these things are wired up differently, and I'm not sure, you know, how to describe the differences. You know, disclaimer, I ain't no electrologist, so it's, you know, I'm just kind of making some guesses here. See, on the 6-liter, the field windings are connected at the bottom. There's two connections at the bottom, one there. So they're wired up differently. Now, I don't know if that matters. I think functionally, you know, they see this one, there is no connections at the bottom. Everything's connected up top. So there is a difference. Now, whether or not that makes a hill of beans, I doubt it. It's probably just different ways to skin the same cat, if you will. There's the 7.3. It's just like the 6-liter. Okay, hopefully you can see this. So here's what we're dealing with. Up here we have the 6.4 and 6.7 liter starter. Down here we have the 6-liter and the 7.3 starter. And if you'll notice, they're wound differently. Now, I alluded to this earlier. So let's go over the 6-liter first. So these are your 4 brushes here, and 2 of the brushes go to ground. The other 2 have battery voltage, but since these are series wound motors, what happens is that the battery voltage first comes in through this post. This is the battery connection here, also shown there. So the voltage comes in, and there's a copper bus bar here, and it connects to the innermost wrap of innermost wire of these wire wraps that go around this. This is the electromagnet that's only magnetized when, you know, current is flowing through these wires. These wires come in and wrap around, and they wrap around 6 times, and then at the end of their wrap they come down here, boom, they catch this wire, and they come up here and they wrap around this magnet 6 times, and then once they're done wrapping around this magnet, they come up and they energize the brush here. And so that's 2 of these, so that's 3 and 4. So this is the top view of the starter. So this is the battery connection here. It comes in. You got pole number 3, 4, 1, and 2. So these 3, 4, 1, and 2. So that's one half of the equation. The other half over here is actually mirrored. So you would take this, take this on the left side and mirror it like that, so everything's in the reverse. So where you've got technically 7 wires here, because there's an extra wire that wraps around and goes down, that's flip-flopped, and so there's more wraps on this side. So the wrappings would come here, and then they would go underneath and catch this
this pole over here and wrap around some more, and then this is the bus bar that goes back to the battery. So this is all connected right here. So if you look up at the 6.4 and the 6.7 liter starter, you get the brush here, you get the 2 ground brushes, and then you've got your battery positive post here, and that comes across. There's a copper bus bar as well. It comes behind here and stops. And both of these poles are wound in the same way, and they're both parallel to this bus bar. So when this bus bar is energized, battery voltage goes to this series of windings and this series of windings at the same time. And they are wound 5 times versus the 6 times down in the 6 liter and 7.3 starter. But these poles are bigger. These poles are 49 millimeters top to bottom, whereas the 6 liter and the 7.3 are 42 millimeters. So these poles are bigger. So even though there's less number of wraps of wire around them, they're bigger poles, and so I didn't do the measurements. I don't know which one technically has more wire lengthwise speaking around them. But then if you come over here, that serves pole 1 and 2, so that's pole 1 and pole 2. If you come over here to the other side, pole 3 and 4, they are repeats of this, so they're not mirrored. They just repeat. So my theory as to why the 6.4 and 6.7 liter starters spin over much quicker is for a few different reasons. One, the poles themselves are bigger, as well as the windings on the armature, which would be these right here. They're bigger to compensate for the bigger poles. But aside from just that, the fact that they're wound differently, so the electricity has to come in here and go around all the way around this pole, and then it goes to this pole, wraps all the way around again, and then finally it goes to the brushes. Now, we're speaking only in a matter of milliseconds, but it does take longer for that energy to come in and make all these wraps, and then come to this next one and make all these wraps before it gets to the brush. Whereas in the 6.4 and 6.7 liter starter, it comes in the bus bar, hits these wraps, and it is wrapping around here at the same time it's wrapping around here, and then it shoots up the middle here, connects to this bus bar, goes to this brush. So it's going to be quicker. So in my opinion, that's why the motor spins faster. Now I don't know what you would call the difference between these two, because they're both series wound, but it's almost like this is a series wound motor, yet the poles are wired in parallel, if you will. Whereas on this one, it's like a series motor, because it's in series. It goes from here to here to here. Whereas up here, it just goes here, these at the same time, wired in parallel, and then up to this brush. So, that's a little different, and the locations of these poles and the motors too. I've got them numbered the same, but as you can see, they're wired. Their locations are wired differently. Yeah, so that's about as deep as I can go on these starters, and certainly deeper than I've ever seen anybody else go or seen a video of. This is something I've wanted to know for a long time. Now I know. And there's been a lot of speculation on forums and what have you as to what the differences really are. And people make a lot of guesses, but they don't really know. And there's even one forum where there's someone at a parts store printed out the data sheet that comes with these starters. I guess these starters from other suppliers, you don't really get them from Ford. And on the data sheet, it showed, I'm not looking at it now, so I can't remember exactly what it said, but I think it said something like the 6 liter and 7.3 starters actually were more powerful but spun slower. And I say take that with a grain of salt, because those data sheets oftentimes are just the exact same data, just printed out and thrown in a box to make it look official, and B, they may not have used, it may have been 2 different companies doing the testing. They may have used different methods of testing, because when you test a series wound motor, it needs to be tested against a load, and I don't know, there's a lot more to it that I even understand, but I just, you know, those data sheets, you know, whatever. The proof is in the pudding, as I've stated earlier, and clearly the 6.4 and 6.7 starters are more powerful and spin the motor over much, much faster. So there you have it. Gear reductions are the same. It's just the motor itself that's more powerful. There's where your extra RPM comes from. Okay, just for clarity, now I misspoke in the video a lot, and I don't feel like reshooting it, so I just want to say this. These are field coils. So anytime I say poles, I'm really talking about the field coils. And poles may be an appropriate term as well. I don't know. As I said, I'm no rocket surgeon. Don't have a degree in electrology. But I get by. And also, the width of the field coils are identical at 32 millimeters. Only the lengths are different. That is all. The only other thing I didn't check was the actual wire size of the windings between the 6 liter and the 6.4. So let's see, even they're potted, so it's really hard to get a measurement. Let's see what I can get here. Two and a half, roughly. I'm going to say 3 millimeters for the 6.7. Yeah, 3 millimeters for the 6.4. 6 liters, really hard to measure. I'm going to say 3 for the 6 liter too. So it looks like all the winding, the wire size and the armatures are all the same. Yeah, they're all the same. So that's no difference. So there you have it. The definitive difference amongst all the Ford starters. For the diesel, anyways. So just to wrap things up, the only performance increase that people are seeing when they when they install a 6.4 or 6.7 starter on their 6.0 is it's one of two things. Either it's due to the bigger armature and field windings, which I would presume that it is. I would assume, well, it stands to reason that that would be a more powerful motor. There would be more electricity flowing, generating a larger magnetic field, so more flux, and it would just have more power. Aside from that, the only other reason that they're getting more cranking RPM and a better performing starter is just the fact that it's a newer starter that they're putting on an older engine, newer than the starter that they're replacing. Aside from that, there's no difference. Everything's the same. Now, one more thing that I do want to mention, that it's pretty cool, is that aside from the nose cone that actually bolts up to your engine, so it would bolt to the flywheel housing. Aside from this, all the other parts are interchangeable. Now you'd want to keep the armature with the proper field windings. Yeah, that you need to keep the same, but aside from that, well, and you'd have to keep in mind the different sizes of the bearings between the 6 liter here and the 6.4 here. But aside from that, take all that into consideration. So you can take a 6.7 liter starter, remove the very end of the nose cone, take your 7.3 nose cone, boom. 6.7 liter starter mounted to a 7.3 liter engine. So you'll get the bigger armature and field windings, the more powerful starter, and you're good to go. And you'll also get a larger bearing here, so it could last a little bit longer. So now I'm going to build a super starter out of this good 6.7 liter starter and the nose cone on the 7.3. Well, they say the proof is in the pudding, so here's the pudding. We'll do the eating later. This is the 6.7 liter starter mated to the 7.3 liter SAE2, I believe, mounting flange. So we'll give this a shot, see how it goes. It's time to eat that pudding. I pulled out my DP tuner so it won't start, it'll just spin over. So let's see how it sounds. Joshy likey, I'm for it. Love the way that sounds. Okay, this test is with the Boostotron hooked up. That is my auxiliary wire that goes from the passenger side battery connection down to the starter. So thanks for watching, I appreciate it. I like doing this kind of stuff and I would like to do more of it in the future. So if anybody's got any ideas of maybe different things, similar nature to this, where you want to know what's really different between the two, you know, let me know. Clearly I went, you know, full dork on this one. I geeked out really hard, but that's kind of my MO. That's what I do. I'm a digger. My paws are always dirty. So anyway, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Peace outside.